Okay, politics now. President-elect Donald Trump made some big promises during his first sit-down interview since the election. On NBC's Meet the Press, he discussed everything from his plans for the economy to what he called the biggest mass deportation in U.S. history.
First of all, they're costing us a fortune. But we're starting with the criminals, and we got to do it. And then we're starting with others, and we're going to see how it goes. Well, I don't want to be breaking up families, so the only way you don't break up the family is you keep them together, and you have to send them all back.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion is joining us live from West Palm Beach, Florida. This day one deportation plan, on the face of it, it almost sounds unconstitutional, Nikole, because the president-elect, while suggesting that folks who are here illegally should go back and be deported to their countries, he also seemed to indicate that if a child was born here in the United States, meaning a United States citizen, that they would also have to leave with the parents, which sort of doesn't make a lot of sense. A, they wouldn't have legal status in the country of their parents if they don't have passports for those countries, and B, it's against the law.
Yeah, absolutely, which goes to show there's still a lot to work through here with respect to the president-elect's plan. But as you heard him there say, he more or less kind of echoed what we have heard from his border czar, Tom Homan, suggesting that some of these families with mixed citizenship could potentially face deportation. As you heard him say there, he doesn't want to split people up, so just deport them all together seems to be his solution. But how that works, again, remains to be seen. We also heard him say that he does intend to move forward with his pledge of mass deportation to deport the millions of undocumented immigrants that are in this country. He said his priority first would be those who have a criminal record. Then he would look to others. He also, interestingly, said that he is willing to work with Democrats when it comes to the issue of Dreamers. He suggested that he does believe that Dreamers should be able to stay here in the United States, those who were brought into the country illegally as children, that he does want to work out some type of agreement there with Democrats. So that was also something that was new from the president with respect to his potential immigration plans.
Let's talk about health care. During the debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, both of them were asked about their plans for health care in this country. It's a major, major issue. The president, during the debate, said that he had concepts of a plan. What did he say, if anything, in this interview?
Well, he reiterated that he still has many of those concepts, Vlad. And look, he basically said that with respect to Obamacare, if you will, that if there's a better way, if there's a better answer, he's willing to consider it. At the same time, he didn't necessarily put forward any specifics or indicate that he is working on a specific plan to potentially repeal or replace Obamacare, which is something he has attempted to do in the past along with congressional Republicans. He also renewed his criticism of now deceased Senator John McCain, who, of course, gave that infamous thumbs down voting against repealing and replacing Obamacare, continuing to criticize John McCain for that. But again, it doesn't sound that this is something kind of at the top of his list. Obviously, he also interestingly took credit for trying to make Obamacare better. In his words, he felt that he has, during his administration, they tried to make it better, even though at the same time they were trying to repeal and replace it. So scoring those two things, you may have to go back to the interview for that, but those were his comments with respect to Obamacare.
Yeah, so in other words, not a lot of thought had gone into those concepts of healthcare since he had nothing concrete to offer. All right, Nikole, thank you very much as always. Appreciate it.